Hello, this is Ruslan Belov. The resource deal between the US and Ukraine has finally been signed. Well, let's see how Trump reacts now. Will he suddenly become a great friend of Ukraine, or will nothing really change? In any case, the fighting continues. And we, as always, are keeping track of the situation on the front lines. Let's open the map. So, friends, today we have some truly great news. Just yesterday, I told you that the army had gained strong momentum. Well, today, the setbacks, and I mean massive setbacks, for the Ukrainian armed forces have continued. That's why you should definitely watch this video to the end. It's going to be very interesting. We'll start with the sector where Ukraine's so-called elite forces are holding the defense. The Azov fighters. Though to say they're holding the defense would be a lie. They're not holding anything. Under even slightly above average pressure, they flee at a considerable speed. Take a look at this. What a beauty. Everything marked in red is territory that has come under the full control of our army. Just by looking at the map, you can see it's a significant area. First, here's Severny. The army has advanced from Katerinovka toward the Zherebets River, a massive push. Let's measure it. Over 5 kilometers. And the depth of penetration, if we measure from positions further south, is more than 2 kilometers. And that's just what the American cartographers have marked for us. In reality, according to my sources, and I'm in contact with guys from this sector, the actual advance was even greater. What's more, as I was told, there was an incident where elite Ukrainian units, under threat of being shot, forced their own territorial defense comrades to cover their retreat. Essentially, a full-on rout. Some covered while others fled, and in the end, most of them were killed. 2 territorial defense fighters surrendered. Besides this sector, the Ukrainian armed forces also suffered setbacks further west. Specifically, we managed to push through and fully secure the village of Novoye, a fairly large settlement. Here, too, the advance stretched over 5 kilometers. As I mentioned, the Ukrainian forces were driven out of the village and have already retreated to the next one, Lipovoye. And it's not just a retreat. As you can see, our troops have practically reached the western outskirts. The village is small, so even though remnants of the defeated garrison are trying to hold a few houses on the western edge, they stand no chance. I think our guys will finish clearing Lipovoy today, and it too will come under our control. By the way, I have exclusive footage from these sectors. Very intense, even frightening, I'd say. It's 4 minutes of real-time combat, screams, wounds, evacuations. It's the kind of footage that makes you feel like you're right there. Chilling. I've just posted it on my Telegram channel, so follow the link in the description and check it out. I genuinely recommend it to everyone. You don't have to subscribe, but at least watch the footage. It's eye-opening. You'll understand what our guys are going through out there. Alright, let's move on. A few more words about the Lyman direction, just so you grasp the scale of our advance, and conversely, the scale of the Ukrainian armed forces collapse. Look, if we tally up the gains here and near Novoye, we're talking about a total of 14 square kilometers, just on the Lyman front. For those who regularly watch my updates, you know this is now the 3rd straight day of major Ukrainian setbacks. The day before yesterday, we covered the Bohatyr sector, where we took 23 square kilometers in that one area alone. By the way, the advances there are still ongoing. We'll touch on that later. Yesterday, we had 3 separate sectors with 3-kilometer pushes. Today, we've taken 14 square kilometers here. Now you understand why Zelensky is so desperate for a 30, 60, or even 90-day ceasefire, as they've been proposing. He urgently needs to rebuild his battered brigades. But let me tell you this, we cannot allow that. Right now, when they're suffering major losses and clearly can no longer hold the front line as they once did, we must keep pressing. Today we're taking 15 square kilometers a day. That means if we keep up the pressure, in a couple of months, we'll be taking 20 to 25 square kilometers, maybe even more. Now let's move on because our advances aren't limited to Lyman. The collapse near Lyman isn't the only one. If we look at the Toretsk direction, or rather the flank of Toretsk, we've now crossed the highway along this entire line. 2 key objectives are being addressed here. First, clearing out the pocket, and second, blocking Staraya Nikolaevka from the east. Remember, it's already blocked from the south, near Kalinova. Now it's also cut off from the east. I believe we'll soon receive reports about the assault on the village beginning, as our positions are just 700 meters from its eastern outskirts. Further west, near Tarasovka, or rather beyond it, the situation is also positive. As you can see, the advance continues. Our forces have pushed 1.5 kilometers past Tarasovka, reaching the reservoir. The main objective now is Novaya Yelenovka, and Russian troops are just 1 kilometer from the village's outskirts. Meanwhile, in Berezovka, we're amassing forces for a subsequent push toward Novaya Poltavka. The village lies just beyond the highway, literally 700 meters away, meaning an assault could happen at any moment. Russian forces have also made significant progress north of the western districts of Chasiv Yar. This city is crucial for both sides. Control over Chasiv Yar would allow Russian troops to swiftly secure Konstantinovka and territories further north. From these positions, artillery can reach as far as Slovyansk and Kramatorsk, as the city sits on one of the highest points in Donetsk Oblast. Today, a large area has entered the grey zone, and we're closely monitoring this sector, where daily advances have been reported in recent days. On the Pokrovsk direction, we continue moving along the railway toward Novukrainka. Over the past day, we've improved our positions by 230 meters without major breakthroughs. From Uspinovka, attempts are being made to gain a foothold in Novoalexandrovka, but don't expect quick results here. While military blogger Yuri Podolyaka recently claimed the village was practically liberated, that's not accurate. We're only just securing positions on its eastern outskirts, in the first houses. To put it in perspective, just recall how long the battles for Uspinovka lasted. Thankfully, we eventually broke through from a different angle, so don't assume Novoalexandrovka will be easier. It won't. The fighting here is extremely intense and grueling. The real positive development, however, is near Bohatyr. Yesterday, the first major attack was launched, involving not just motorcycle infantry but also armored vehicles. The results, as you can see, are impressive. A 4-kilometer advance, with the key breakthrough being the collapse of Ukrainian defenses on the approaches to the village. Our forces have now reached Bohatyr's southern outskirts, marking the official start of the assault. Recall that for over a week, we've been hammering the village with FABs, glide bombs, and artillery. Now, we're trying to consolidate our position, and I believe the coming days will show just how much the garrison's combat potential has been degraded by airstrikes and shelling. The Ukrainian garrison here was large, several hundred troops, so despite the preparation, the fighting will still be fierce. The political component, Russia's UN envoy, Vasily Nebenzia, made a statement regarding negotiations with Ukraine, Zelensky, and the involvement of North Korean troops. Russia and the DPRK acted in full compliance with international law during the liberation of Russian territory. Russia is ready for direct talks with Ukraine without preconditions. Despite Zelensky's legitimacy issues, if Ukraine agrees to an upcoming ceasefire, it could pave the way for direct negotiations. Russia expects the West to stop arming Kiev and for Zelensky to be convinced of the need for constructive dialogue. Zelensky must fulfill his election promises to pursue peace with Russia and protect the rights of Ukraine's Russian-speaking population. Analysts rightly note that Zelensky's threats, including his rhetoric about striking the May 9th Victory Day parade, are a bluff aimed at discouraging high-profile foreign guests from attending Moscow's celebrations. But the real reason Zelensky won't dare, as reported by the Telegram channel Legitimny, is that it would open the door for Russian strikes on government buildings in Kiev, the cabinet, the Verkhovna Rada, or SBU headquarters. Ukraine's elite fears for their own skins above all else. Imagine a Kinzhal missile hitting the cabinet or parliament during working hours in retaliation. The Sumy front, a new phase. Zelensky's failed Kursk adventure and the Belgorod provocation, which led to massive Ukrainian losses in personnel and equipment, have effectively given the Russian army a free hand to push into Sumy Oblast. This is no longer just sporadic skirmishes, but a clearly structured offensive, with the capture of key settlements and consolidation on the ground. Legitimny. Of particular note is the role of North Korean soldiers in the fighting near Kerchin, after which the Ukrainian defenses in this sector collapsed. Reports from the front line indicate that Korean troops distinguished themselves in battles for Koronevsky district assaults near Stara and Nova Sorochina, breakthroughs toward Kurilovka, Plekovo, and Guevo. Their endurance, discipline, and near-fanatical resolve are not just propaganda, they're confirmed by both Russian and Ukrainian sources. While Ukrainian units frequently request evacuation, North Korean fighters press forward relentlessly. Their motivation isn't just military duty, but personal loyalty to their country, ideology, and leader Kim Jong-un, a stark contrast to the demoralized, war-weary Ukrainian troops. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian command is reaping the consequences of its own mistakes. The decision to disperse forces thinly across the entire front line has left critical sectors dangerously undermanned. Reserves are now being urgently redeployed to Sumy Oblast, not from deep reserves, but from Zaporizhia. The 110th Brigade has already been relocated, signaling extreme strain in Ukrainian defenses. Ukrainian soldiers admit that the threat to Sumy has severely undermined Syrsky's standing within the military command. Meanwhile, Russian units have captured 4 settlements, expanding the zone of control by over 90 square kilometers. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this update, subscribe to the channel.